Hi there, today on Typical Books I'm doing a twofer of Slob and the Slob. One is by Rex Miller, a former HWA Bram Stoker Award winner for a debut novel way back in the day in the 80s, and Aaron Beauregard's The Slob. Now, The Slob was a 2021 nominee for the Splatterpunk Awards, and this is not only how I heard of it. It made the rounds among us splatter and extreme fans on BookTube and offline and Twitter. Of course, I hear a lot about extreme work on Twitter, and I've tuned into the Written and Read podcast, so I've heard quite a bit about The Slob going into it. I've heard it likened to a lot of other extreme works, most notably Dead Inside. I think it is because this has a sort of a link in that it does deal with pregnancy or the cessation thereof and really grotesque things related to that. While there's no one actually pregnant in the book Dead Inside, there is here, and I was reading not too long ago the Stillborn Gallery collection by Axel Barnes. I think that if you found that rough, if you read that, then this would be even rougher. Slob by Rex Miller, on the other hand, does have extreme moments, is not necessarily an extreme novel, but it was very dark and very gory for its time. The first half of the book, which I'll get into a little bit, held a lot of what an extreme fan craves in their horror fiction. Very visceral, very unforgiving, and really pushed all of those boundaries that may be earmarked as taboo. Horror fiction isn't always the home for pushing boundaries, yet in extreme or very dark horror fiction, that is where it lives, and it lives very well within these novels. Now, the reason I pitted these against one another, which isn't a versus scenario, it is literally because Slob and The Slob are the titles, and one is so old and an award nominee as well, and one is so new and a great award nominee at that. I found that there was some similarities to be found. The Slob came out in 1987 and was a Bram Stoker Award winner for Best Debut Novel. And this writer, Rex Miller, was a radio personality, and a lot of that moxie shows through in this. And at the dawn of splatterpunk, that sort of moxie was what got those writers ahead. Aside from the visceral gore splattered across the page, it was their no-holds-barred attitude, their very breezy manner, if you want to peg Strunk and White for that, but beyond breezy. Very casual language, street talk, street jargon, and there is a real mix of different demographics going on here as far as that street life goes. It's not all pimps and hookers. There are many different people that live on the streets, including police and detectives. Detective Eichert is the cop that follows a serial killer named Chain Gang, and the introduction to that serial killer is where we spend most of our time in that first half, and I love killer point of view. Absolutely love it. And in Slob, the first half of the book does it very, very well. We don't get killer point of view in The Slob, but it does start out with a really cool introduction. Vera detests filth, and she gets into exactly why, and the story as to why she detests filth so much is great. The line of work she gets into while raising money to support a family, a fresh family, she's pregnant, is fantastic. And I really love leading into our meeting of the Slob, the titular Slob, this man who she inadvertently meets and ends up being the captive of. Now, we don't get killer point of view, but we get a lot of the point of view around this killer, and it is just as effective as killer point of view in a way because of what he has around him in his domicile and what he orders the people around him to do. And his sort of gruff yet calm demeanor is so off-putting. It fits really well within that killer kind of milieu of the very calm, calculated, sadistic, cruel killer. This is it in spades. Slob being 1987, a debut novel by someone who was not a novelist, a radio personality at that, it sort of goes off the rails, especially near the end. Although, what this does is set it up for a sequel. There is a Chain Gang series of books by Rex Miller. I'm not sure if I'm going to read the rest because I did kind of sneak peek some of it at toomuchhorrorfiction.com, and it doesn't sound like it's for me. If you're a fan of Bizarro, though, I think you'll enjoy it. It does get a little bizarre near the end. It's touching and interesting, though. The killer point of view, the reason why there is that bizarre nature in the follow-ups has to do with some more touching moments that we spend with Chain Gang. Chain Gang does have a name, I just don't want to spoil it. Now, of course, we flash forward to 2021, where we have so much work under our belts as horror writers and readers. We may not be prone to those same rookie mistakes, and as a result, we have a very tight-moving, albeit shorter novella-length story that doesn't really get lost in the weeds. It is a little bizarre as to the nature of why Vera is trapped and the things she could have done and the decisions she could have made. You can always poke holes in any plot, but the writing here is sound, and I really enjoy Aaron Beauregard's style. It is measured, it's not as bizarre in your face as some of the Bizarro styles of writing, extreme or very stark or visceral horror. So I really enjoyed that sort of measured approach to it. And I did really enjoy the almost clinical descriptions of the gore. And that's where my favorite splatterpunk lives, is not just talking about blood matting the floor or the people and just always going to the same sort of red painted walls sort of idea where it's all very samey and you're using the same sort of phrases. Beauregard uses a virtual medical dictionary to describe all the different flavors of gore spattering these walls and floors. Rex Miller here does the same, especially in the first half of the book. I keep kind of going to the first half of the book because that's where most of my enjoyment lay. There wasn't so much of this like interpersonal relationship of the B-plot between the detective and whoever else. That wasn't very interesting to me because I'm not in it for the cat and mouse mystery. I'm in this for the serial killer. And he is a deplorable bloke, really honestly. It is very gory and very disturbing, and I can see why this hit with a bang, much like Nicole Cushing with her debut novel nomination and win for, I believe, Mr. Suicide. It really hit the ground running, it hit readers hard, and it didn't let go. The Slob lets go, though, somewhere near the middle. It becomes sort of slower. The killer, who at first was terrifying and grotesque, and everything he did was unexpected and a new level in depravity, by the middle he starts to sort of chill out. Here there is no middle to chill out. It really does grab you, keep going, and every level of depravity gets worse and worse. A lot of it takes place in the same area, but when we move areas, unlike the Slob where when we move areas, the tension starts to wane, here the tension begins to heighten. Slob and the Slob. Two very different horror novels by two very different sorts of writers, done in very different decades when it comes to horror. One, I would say, fits into that beginning of extreme and splatterpunk. There really is an edge to this where it fits into splatterpunk very neatly in that it has something to say about society, and it talks about all these different societal demographics. It talks about politics in this, very much so, and I think it fits into splatterpunk quite neatly, although it's not quite as extreme. The Slob could be mistaken for a splatterpunk novel. It does have splatterpunk elements to a certain degree, but by and large it is an extreme novel because it doesn't rely on those socio-political statements to move the plot forward. It relies so much more on that really extreme visceral gore. We do love some really extreme visceral gore here, do we not? So if you've read Slob or The Slob, I would love to hear from you. There may not be too much videos coming up. I might do a true crime video heading into Christmas and then take a little break over the holidays. So I'll see you at least once more until then, and another twofer. Probably it's going to be the twofer of Edward Loren's Come and C.C. Adams' Seaman. Or I have another one about novellas with unreliable narrators. We'll see what happens next. Thank you very much for watching, and make sure that you have an spooky day.